In this video, I am going to share with you a step-by-step pattern for making this basic granny square. This is a slow tutorial and it's absolute beginner friendly. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to DIY Crafts. So for this, I am going to use a 4-ply medium worsted weight acrylic yarn and a 4mm crochet hook. And now let's begin by making a slip knot. To make a slip knot, wrap the yarn around your finger as shown in the video and insert the needle into the center. Now drop a loop. Pull the tail end to make the starting knot, and this one is your slip knot. Now let's start making the chain to make a center. So for this I am going to make chain 5, that's 2, chain 3, chain 4 and chain 5. Once all the 5 chains are done, we are going to make a slip stitch. So insert your needle into the first chain. Now pull both the loops on the needle together and draw the yarn through both the loops at the same time. So that is your slip stitch. And now this is the center which is formed after making the slip stitch. We are going to work the first row into this center. Now for row 1, begin with chain 3. And put a stitch marker into this chain, and this marks the first double crochet stitch in your row. So for the square shape we are going to have 4 sides and 4 corners. So we are going to make the first side here. For this, make the double crochet stitches into the center. So chain 3 and then you have 2 double crochet stitches, and then you have to make chain 2 for the corner. That's the first corner. And then for the second side, again make 3 double crochet stitches. So that's the second double stitch, and then the third double stitch. So you have first side, first corner, and then the second side. Now we are doing the second corner for the square. That's chain 2. And now third side, make 3 double crochet stitches into the center. That's 1, second double stitch, and then the third double stitch. That's the third side. Now let's make the third corner, that's chain 2. Then the fourth side, again make 3 double crochet stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then the fourth corner, make chain 2. So this completes your first row. Now let's join the first stitch and the last chain to close the row. So remove your stitch marker, insert your needle into the third chain, and now make a slip stitch. Draw the yarn through both the loops, and this completes your first row. So you will have a basic square shape with 3 double crochet stitches on each side and chain 2 giving the corners. So likewise you will see the shape of a square. Now for the second row, we are going to make a slip stitch on the top of the first, second, and then into the chain 2 gap. So insert your needle into the first stitch and then make a slip stitch. And now the second slip stitch over the next stitch. And make one more slip stitch into the chain 2 space. So for this project, we are going to start each and every row in the corners. So now for the second row, begin with chain 3 and consider this chain 3 as a first double stitch. And then make 2 more double crochet stitches into the chain 2 space. So here each granny cluster is having 3 double crochet stitches. So chain 3 is 1 double stitch, then this one is another double crochet stitch, and then the third DC. So this is 1 granny cluster. Now for the corner, make chain 2 and again make 3 more double crochet stitches into the chain 2 space. Squeeze the stitches closer so that you can accommodate all the 6 stitches into that chain 2 space. So this one is another granny cluster. So we have one granny cluster, chain 2 space, and one more granny cluster all into the chain 2 space. Now make chain 1 and then into the next chain 2 space repeat the same pattern, which means one granny cluster, chain 2 and one granny cluster, which means 3 double crochet stitches. So that's the third one. Chain 2 and 3 more double crochet stitches into the same chain 2 space. That's 1, 2 and 3. Then again make chain 1. This will give you the second corner here. Now make chain 1 and then into the next chain 2 space we are going to make the same set of stitches. So that's 1 double crochet stitch and then the second DC and third DC. That's 3 double stitches. Then chain 2, again into the same chain 2 space make 3 more double crochet stitches. So in granny square every time we are going to work only in the chain spaces. It may be a chain 2 gap or it may be a chain 1 gap. So chain 2 gaps will be only in the corners and the chain 1 gaps which we are doing will be on the sides of the granny square. So here the stitches in between the two corners will have a chain 1 space and the stitches in the corners will have a chain 2 space. So here we have chain 3 DC, chain 2 and 3 DCs in the corners. Squeeze the stitches so that you can accommodate all the 6 stitches. So we have 3 DC, chain 2 and now we are going to make the last 3 DC for the second row. That's 1, 2 and 3. Now chain 1 and then you can check the shape. It will give you a nice square kind of look by the end. Now remove your stitch marker and we are going to make a slip stitch onto the top of the third chain in the first chain 3. So insert the needle and make a slip stitch. So this completes your second row and here you can see the nice perfect square shape. Now for the next row you are going to make a slip stitch until you reach the corner. Corner here is a chain 2 space. So make the first slip stitch on the first stitch, second slip stitch on the second stitch and one more slip stitch into the chain 2 gap. Every time you can cross check the shape. If it is good then you are doing in a correct manner. Now for the third row in the chain 2 space we have to make 3 DC, chain 2 and 3 DC. So for the first 3 DC we have made a chain 3, that's the height chain. Count it as first double stitch in your third row. Then 2 more double crochet stitches. So that's the first one and then the second one. So we have 3 double crochet stitches. Now make chain 2 and then make 3 more double crochet stitches into the same stitch. That's the second one and then the third one. Now once the corner work is completed, scan for the next chain gap. Here we have a chain 1 gap in the center, on the side. So make 1 chain and then into that chain 1 space make 1 granny cluster, that is 3 double crochet stitches into the same stitch. So these 3 double crochet stitches and then make chain 1. So we have chain 1 gap at the starting and at the ending of this granny cluster, that is on the side. And here we are going to work in the chain 2 gap. So into the chain 2 gap we have to make a corner stitch, that is 3 double crochet stitches, chain 2 and 3 double crochet stitches into the same chain 2 space. That's 1, 2 and 3. Now make chain 1. So this part completes your second corner. Chain 1, and this is on the second side. Make 3 DCs into the chain 1 space. That's 2 and then 3. Now make chain 1. So here this gives the second side. Now this is the third corner. Into that corner make increase, that's a granny cluster increase, which means 3 DCs, chain 2 and 3 DC. So we have done 3 DC. Now make chain 2 and into the same space make 3 DC. That's 1, 2, 3. So this completes your third corner. Now for the third side, chain 1 and then make a granny cluster into that chain 1 space. So that's 1, 2, 3. Again chain 1. This is the third side. Now we are going to make a stitch in the fourth corner. For this make 3 double stitches. That's 2, 3. Then make chain 2 and then into the same chain 2 space make 3 more double crochet stitches. That's 1, 2 and 3. Then this completes your fourth corner. Chain 1 and then into the last chain 1 space make 3 double crochet stitches. That's 2 and then 3. Now finally make the last chain 1 and make a slip stitch onto the third chain of the first chain 3 in this row. So by the end of this row you will have, you must have completed the 3 rows of your square shape, and each row, each side you will have 3 granny clusters. So if it is a third row, you will have 3 granny clusters from chain 2 to chain 2 space, and this count will keep on increasing if the rows increases. Now for the fourth row also, by now you must have understood the assignment. Make a slip stitch until you reach the chain 2 space, that is the corner space. In corner we are going to make a granny cluster increase, and in the sides you will make only a granny cluster in chain 1. So that's first row, second and third row. You will have a granny clusters and gaps alternatively. So where you have a gap, there you will have a stitch, and wherever you have a stitch, there you will have a gap. So for the fourth row, begin with chain 3 and put a stitch marker in your third chain, and then make a granny cluster increase, that is 3 DC, chain 2 and 3 DC. So that's the second DC, and then one more DC into the same stitch. So that's 3 DC, 1 granny cluster and then chain 2, and now into the same chain 2 gap make 3 more DCs. So that's 1, 2, 3. So this completes your first corner. Now on the first side you will see 2 chain 1 gaps. So begin with a chain 1, into the first chain 1 space make 1 granny cluster. So that's 1, 2, 3. Now chain 1. You have one more chain 1 gap. So this one is also a side where you have to make 1 granny cluster into that chain 1 space. So that's 1, 2 and then third double stitch. Then make chain 1, and this completes your first side. Now we are going to make a stitch into the second corner. So into the corner, make granny cluster increase, that is 3 double crochet stitches, chain 2, that's chain 1 and then chain 2, and 3 more double crochet stitches into the same stitch. That's 1, 2 and 3. Then make chain 1 and this gives you a second corner. So once you adjust the shape, you can see it's nice square kind of thing. Now repeat this same process throughout the row, that is single granny cluster and chain 1 on the sides and granny cluster increase into the corners. So here I am making the last granny cluster of the 4th row. Now chain 1 and then make a slip stitch into the 3rd chain of the first chain 3. So remove the stitch marker and then make a slip stitch, and this completes the 4th row. Now check for the perfect square shape by stretching on the corners. Now you can keep on adding rows by following this simple technique of making granny cluster increases in the chain 2 spaces, that's the corners, and granny cluster in the chain 1 gaps. And how you can assure that your sides are same, just count the number of stitches in between your chain 2s. So in one side, if you have some 10 number of granny clusters, each side you will have the same number of granny clusters. So into the chain 1 spaces you will make granny clusters, in the corner an increase, and in the sides again granny clusters, in the corner we will have an increase, and likewise you will keep on adding rows to how much ever length of the square you wanted. And for this tutorial I am making up to 5 rows to make it as a decent size of a coaster. So let me complete the 5th row and I will get back to you. So here I am making the last stitch of the 5th row, making a last slip stitch, and then trim the excess thread by leaving a little small tail end is enough to hide those tail end. If you are attaching this one to another square, then you can leave a long tail end, but here as I am going to use it as a coaster, I am just trimming off it with a small tail end. And once it's done, take the tail end into a tapestry needle, and now take this thread to back side of your work using this tapestry needle, and once the tail end is behind your work, turn it to the back side and then hide the tail end across few stitches to and fro for a couple of times in order to make sure that the tail end is weaved in properly and completely, and this ensures our work is safe and secure even after washing and even after frequent usage. So any stitch you can weave in and weave out, no problem. Now repeat the same thing with your starting tail end as well. Take the tail end into the tapestry needle, hide the tail end into few stitches and then trim the excess thread. And this completes your granny square. I hope you all enjoyed watching this tutorial. Do give this pattern a try and let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. The written pattern for this granny square is given in the description. Do check it out. See you all in the next video. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, share it and subscribe to DIY Crafts.